Hello and welcome to another episode of Push Your Glasses Up by Mikey. Today I'm joined by Reena to talk all about Barbie. But before we do, hey, if you enjoy these videos, please like them, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you prefer getting these podcasts as an audio-only format, you can find us on podcast services everywhere. Your Spotify's, your Apple's, your Google's, your whatevers. Let's talk about Barbie. Hi, Reena.
Hi, Mikey.
I'm not gonna put it off. We're gonna talk about Barbie now.
Yep.
We're not gonna do pleasantries. We're just getting into this movie because we're very excited to talk about it after our screenings. Also,
I talked to you so much that I feel like for once I don't have to catch up with you before the show.
That's actually true. Yeah.
Yes.
What did you think about Barbie?
I absolutely loved it. And I will preface this with saying, for once in my life, I went into it pretty blind. You know me, I love my spoilers, I love my interviews, I love when reviews get lifted from embargo, all of that stuff is my jam. But for this, for some reason, I went, no, just go see it.
You had basically trailers, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand. I didn't know the premise, nothing. And boy, am I glad that I actually took that approach, because this movie, it was amazing. It was what I needed to see, the way that it's been resonating, the conversations I've been having with other women in my life about this movie. I never thought that I would be saying these things about a Barbie movie.
Yeah. It's a miracle that this movie exists, in a lot of ways. That it's just a high quality, across the board Barbie movie is kind of bonkers. The fact that it goes into some of the stuff that it does go into as a Barbie movie, and Mattel allowed that, is bonkers. But it's just, I was going into this one excited anyway, because it's Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, who, Greta Gerwig as a director with Frances Ha and Lady Bird and Little Women, is a phenomenal director herself. Her husband, Noah Baumbach, is also a fantastic director. They're both great writers. Back when the IFC channel was really the independent film channel, back in the early 2000s, that was when I was first introduced to him, before The Squid and the Whale came out and stuff. I saw his Kicking and Screaming, and this is not the Will Ferrell Kicking and Screaming. This is a different Kicking and Screaming that is basically a Wes Anderson movie. But the two of them working together just is such a wonderful dream team kind of thing for me personally. But just on top of that, just the cast and the production design and there's so much, the messages, everything about this movie works almost across the board. There's little nitpicky things or whatever here and there, but I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite of the year so far, and I foresee it staying in my top 10 through the end of the year. But yeah.
Maybe Will Ferrell actually is the CEO of Mattel and we just didn't know. That would make a lot more sense. Also, it was they went, Greta, you do you. You do you. Go ahead.
Yeah. But then also she was like, okay, but remember that guy from the Lego movie who was in the CEO position? We should do that again. Which is one of the parts that I think didn't work as it's fine. The Will Ferrell stuff, I think they could have used anybody in that role and it would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whatever comedy thing. But yeah. What about what was kind of your number one top thing that came out of this movie? Was it the musical numbers? Was it the if you get where I'm going with that, it
was the monologue.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Historically, I'll say if we've listened to the show for a long time, historically, maybe not so much in the last couple of years, but I'm not a movie crier. It's not my thing. Talked about this a lot over like the course of many episodes, but that I was like, hold it in. Do not cry in the theater. You did not wear waterproof mascara. And then the other thing was how funny it was, because I was sitting next to Matthew, who was hysterically laughing the whole time. He's such an Alan. He's such an Alan, and it's okay for me to say that. I was
by myself cracking up not the entire movie. Obviously, there's some very heartfelt and extreme, like, existential moments, and but the comedy in this movie is phenomenal. With most of it, like I said, the Will Ferrell stuff I think is like serviceable. It's Will Ferrell being goofy Will Ferrell, and that's whatever. But like Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie are unbelievable in this movie, especially Ryan Gosling with the comedic timing that he has and the performance. I like Margot Robbie's performance is an all around great performance, and Ryan Gosling's is just a specifically comedic, well done performance. I mean, he has serious moments too, but he's still funny in those moments. Whereas like Margot Robbie's Barbie has legitimately like devastating things going on that she's experiencing it, and it comes through in spades. But yeah, like the performances, the way that they're able to differentiate personalities of the Kens, even though they're like all supposed to kind of be the same guy, like they found that balance really well. Like the way that they did that with the Barbies, I thought was really well, especially with like President Barbie, I thought was one of the standouts. And then obviously Weird Barbie being Kate McKinnon, just being Kate McKinnon. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's sort of the trifecta of the three Barbies, where you can see like a solid range of personalities, where there's still the bubbly kind of idea of Barbie, but they bounce off each other in different ways. That's really well done. But yeah, I can't get over how like there were jokes in this movie that don't like seem like they're like, these are clearly Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach jokes, and I'm like, finally, jokes for old white men like me. Like it's very like the pavement joke. They made a reference to Stephen Malkmus and Pavement in a Barbie movie. That's really insane. But yeah, what would you? I mean, I would presume it's Ryan Gosling as your favorite, like comedic part of the movie.
Truthfully, it was actually Margot Robbie for me, because I mean, I'm used to seeing her play something very out there, very intense. Like Harley Quinn's very intense. Tanya Harding is a very intense character. But you know, just to name a few movies that she was in. But this had such a degree of vulnerability and softness without being weak, because that's like not what Barbie is about. And I feel like that's a difficult balance, and one we don't always see. And I think it's hard because of to the point of the movie, stereotypes that women are kind of shoved in. And you know, I loved how she's like, no, I want to be stereotypical Barbie. Like, I don't want all of this. Like,
don't give me the Birkenstock. Fine. No.
Yeah, no, thank you. I would like to go back to my old life. And, you know, when she does enter the real world, and like one of the most poignant moments for me that I keep thinking about is when she's sitting on the bench with the old woman, and it's like resonating. This is the first time she's seen an old woman with wrinkles and what happens with aging, and her response to that is like it touches her heart, and she starts to cry. Or even the way she talks about crying in the movie. That
bus stop scene is the first moment that like hit me. I felt that build up of like when they started to show her with the not the flashbacks, but like the visions of the person playing with her and stuff. And it started to come forward, but then it was as it came out of that, specifically when it just was the close up on her face and the single tear, and then she turns to the old woman and says, "You're beautiful." Like, it's just a very lovely, quiet moment especially after like such a vibrant and bombastic intro to the movie, that it's like this juxtaposition of like, obviously the real world and the Barbie Land section is like visually different and stuff, but I mean, it's when you're in Barbie Land, it's very old Hollywood, and like it's like just huge sets, and the production design is like massive and colorful, and then when she's going into her visions, it's like a macro lens. It's you're going in, and everything is like tunnel vision, and you're just seeing the leaves moving, and like it's the juxtaposition on that stuff is some of my favorite like technical aspects in the movie, like the act of directing part of it, which was fascinating to me, because like everything else that's on screen is impressive and performances are moving, whether it's funny or emotional and stuff, but it's like it's really interesting to just see this like very, very small focus moment up against this huge bright pink and like pastel blue sky, and like it's just a really cool thing that was pulled off.
Well, that, and like it wasn't that long before that there was a scene where Weird Barbie's explaining what's going to happen to her, and her biggest fear is cellulite, and then to actually be confronted with someone who has aged, and maybe this is because I'm turning 40, but like I'm like, oh no, I get that, I get that, like going from, oh my god, my body is going to change, to seeing somebody who has aged and finding the beauty in that. It's a really important moment for me. And I love that it wasn't lost like on anyone that it's Margot Robbie, and I'm pretty sure she like can't look bad.
Well, Helen Mirren specifically says it in this movie. She references it later in the movie that if you want somebody to actually feel like they are not pretty, maybe don't cast Margot Robbie in the role. Which, I mean, right? She cast herself in the role. She is a producer on the movie, but yeah, it's a really fascinating thing that they pulled off with this movie, just because it's like the idea of like, yeah, it's just a Barbie movie, and if it was like the isekai nature of it, like is an interesting take on it, even though that's like it's kind of cliche at this point of a general
double isekai.
Yeah, but it's like a generalized and overdone thing with like toys or video games, like the real world comes into the video game or the video game comes into the real world kind of thing. That's even the case with like the new Mario movie that came out, even though it's all animated and whatnot. But it's just kind of fascinating that they managed to put just enough of a new twist on it that it didn't feel like a tired routine that we've experienced before, but also just the fact that they took that and made it more, because like the Mario movie is a very fun movie that like has a not similar plot, but just like that same structure of going into a new world and whatnot. But the messages of like not being, I mean, they literally do this, but like not being put in a box, and to like, I've seen some folks say that they wish that there was some sort of resolution in this movie that was like, well, I wish that she, managed to make the real world better, or like, and I'm just like, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the plot of the movie, or not the plot of the movie, the message of the movie, which is she's just Barbie. Like she's not. Like they talk about the fact that it's like there's the side of things where Barbie sets expectations too high for people. There's the side that, with that says it's set back feminism, and there's the side that says like, oh, it's taking away from what women should be, and it's like I think that the whole point of this movie is to showcase like there's no one thing that you're supposed to see out of being a woman. And so like and I know it's a very hilarious thing.
Do you want me to?
Yeah,
do you
it's a
want me to
very
elaborate on this?
it's a very hilarious thing that I'm the one that, explaining this right now. But it is like, I think it was pretty clear to me that that's what they're trying to say with this movie is like self-realization goes beyond being a woman, but also is being a woman. And it's just that you can't structure that in one way. And I think making it about making the real world better, or like she's now like she stayed with Ken, or like I think that would have defeated the whole runtime of the movie if they did that in the end.
Or that she ended up with Ken after
Exactly,
all of his bullshit. No, dude, you need to go on your own healing journey. Get a therapist. I know that you're enough, but like, really, it's gonna take more than a hoodie.
Yeah, and one would assume there is a Barbie you can talk to who is a therapist. It's fine.
I was actually thinking about this because, admittedly, I wasn't a big Barbie girl. I was a stuffed animal girl. So that was more my vibe. We did have Barbies. I know specifically we had Totally Hair Barbie. I had Solo in the Spotlight 1994 reissue Barbie. And I'm pretty sure that we had Sunjewel Barbie, Teresa, and Kira, because I like a good friend group. Also, I had dark hair, so the blonde thing really wasn't my cup of tea. But we did not have any Kens. The Barbies hung out with twin Joey McIntyres and their bestie MC Hammer.
To be fair, we should reiterate that we are in Massachusetts, so there were New Kids on the Block dolls in most houses when we were kids. But yeah, like I'm the youngest in my family, and my oldest sibling is my sister. So we had like a couple in the house, but it was more so when I would go over to. They're not like blood relatives, but we called them like our cousins and aunt and uncle, whatever. But that whole family, other than my uncle, it was my aunt and 4 girls, and it was a Barbie house. So the 2 things I remember whenever I would be getting babysat over there was they had a Nintendo. So I would play Tetris. They literally only had Tetris. And other than that, I was playing Barbie with the kid who was my age. Because it was like one was a few years younger than me. One was my age. One was my brother's age. One was my sister's age. So we were next door neighbors, and that's just, it worked out nicely that way. But that was the thing that I remember the most of, like, if I wasn't playing with my toys at my house, I remember playing with Barbies over there with them because that was what they had. So, yeah.
I had the Dream House, too. My mom found it at a yard sale, and I think it was like yellow and orange or something, and she painted it pink and white, and she like she put carpet in there and like did the whole thing up. So that was my favorite part, and I think really what started me on the journey to wanting to own my own home someday. So thank you, Mom.
But will you have a slide that goes from the top floor spiraling down?
No, I had like the big triangle one that's in 3 pieces.
Gotcha.
But yeah, then maybe that's why I love a sun porch. There's basically 2 of them. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, this movie really is like a movie I needed right now because 1, things in this country are wacky. 2, I work in tech, so you can imagine what a patriarchal nightmare that can be.
I mean, there's a lot of industries I would say could relate to what was going on in this for sure. Yeah. Did you notice? Sorry to cut you off. Did you notice in the background of the Mattel offices, when you look at like the landscape in the background, it had the Warner Brothers Discovery logo back there, which I felt like it could have just been them having to put it in there as a request or whatever, but also it kind of felt like commentary to me with what's going on in Hollywood.
Right. Although I do appreciate, speaking of commentary on what's going on in Hollywood, that Zack Snyder joke was so good. I think I send you a text message where I was there's one comic book movie related thing. I
laughed for like 7 seconds straight after that, like out loud, just like guffawing. Nobody else in my theater was laughing, and I was like, oh, this is an inside joke for me. It's very I'm extremely online and in that comic book community, so works for me. I guess it didn't work for the like 75% teenage girl crowd, but that's fine.
At my theater was the tell them you haven't seen The Godfather.
Yep. That got the adults in the crowd at my screening, like the moms and like older sisters that were bringing their younger family members to the movie. For sure appreciated that one.
There was some I've had some people be like, I didn't like how, they made it a lot about being a mom, and with the creator of Barbie kind of talking to her, like how she created Barbie for her daughter, that kind of monologue in the relationship between Sasha and I don't know why can't I remember what her name is?
America Ferrera.
Yeah, but what was her character's name? Mom. I don't know.
I'm having a hard time recalling off the top of my head too.
But like my sister just saw it, and she actually said something like really beautiful about like moms stand still so they can look back and see how their daughters can look back and see how far they came. And I was like, yeah, moms make a lot of sacrifices. And she was like, no, that's kind of not what it meant to me. She said, it felt like when you become a mother of a daughter, you in your life have worked hard to make their life better for them and for women as best you can within the constraints of society you grow up in. And then when you have a daughter, you metaphorically stand still with the road you paved for her to go ahead, so she can go forth and continue making important societal shifts and seeing how far society has come since you became a mom in the first place. That's what my sister said. And I was like, I did not get that, but I love that. That's
the thing that goes like beyond the things that, the different levels of connection that I can have to then what you can have to then what she can have. And it's in the moments where it first started showing the flashbacks to like somebody playing with Barbie, I was like, oh no, this is going to be the difficult part to watch, like the emotional part to watch. And then it started to like reveal itself to me before the actual reveal that it was going to be the mom. And I was like, oh no, this is going to hit even harder because it's going to be about like a mom who feels like she's losing touch with her daughter. And it did have some of that in that. It had some of what Courtney was saying in that very nicely put thing that she said about it. And I think that it did like it would, I think it would be interesting to have seen a movie where it was just like the Barbie movie, but that's the stuff that made it real to me, was having that one little connection to the real world with a real person who played with the dolls is why it takes something that worked and like hammered home that it worked. It was that little extra special sauce for it.
Oh, like Barbie's a cultural icon and not just a toy, right? Yeah. Like Barbie reflects different points in time, different trends, different things going on. So like it's a little bit broader than, and it has like lasted for so many years and had so many evolutions.
Yeah.
Right. And so like the Barbies of today are not like the original, and there's been some missteps and several like, different iterations.
Some fun types. Ones that, again, why we are surprised that some of this movie is able to get made is like the references to those.
Magic Earring Ken. Sugar Daddy Ken.
No. The dog's name is Sugar and he's his dad. It's so the TV one, Midge. The introduction of Midge is like the funniest thing in the world, where like they're startled. Like it's so. Like,
also, man. I don't think they hyped up the mom for having a job at Mattel. Like that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of just doesn't get steamrolled, but kind of like glossed over. That I think it's a convenience to connect her to the whole like what's happening in the rest of the story. But yeah, I
wish they dug into that, because as they're throwing the outfits out and giving like kind of the history of like when they came about, and she's like, oh, this is vintage and this came from here and I remember that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, she's like a Barbie historian. And I was like, kind of wish that like they dug for like the one female character I feel like wasn't really developed was the mom, because I don't even remember her name.
Gloria. I double checked. But it was fascinating. I keep using the word fascinating about this movie, which is going to get overused by me already, but whatever. But it's interesting because I think that she was developed. It just took time to get there. Mm-hmm. Like it took reaching the moment of the speech, I think, to find that she was fully developed as a character. It's just we weren't seeing it because she had to put those things aside, the things that made her happy and the happy memories of her being with her daughter and stuff like that all got put aside because she had work. And so like, I think on a meta level, it works that way as she is developed, but it is revealed to us that she is fully developed when needed. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, man, this movie, like on so many different angles, is so beyond competently made that it's like, I said it before, it's a miracle that this movie kind of exists.
Well, speaking of like the different angles, some of the controversy has been like, it's going to brainwash you to hate men, and it's like anti-man and like all of this stuff. But like at the end, let me just establish, fuck Ben Shapiro. He can go to hell. But like, it's fun. Did they even like watch the same movie? Because part of it was how the patriarchy affects men as well. It was like,
hurts us too.
It was not like, oh, men are bad. It was, this is what happens when you don't have any structure and you're not allowed to explore your feelings, and all of your validation is tied to female attention. And there was like a lot of stuff. Like, Ken had no purpose except to be noticed by Barbie. And when she didn't want to get it from the time of day, he was frustrated because he had this construct with that was what he was supposed to do. His job is beach, and Barbie needs to pay attention to him. Which is the concept, the conceptual shit with Ken is so good. Sorry. But it's an excellent commentary on like what modern dating is like, and like even though I'm not dating anymore, it's like you'd meet or I would meet guys and they would be like, "Oh, this is my job, this is my car," and I'd be like, "Okay," and they'd be like, they're all upset that I wasn't impressed, or like I'm 6 feet, and I'm like, I don't care. Well, and then there's are you emotionally available? Like, do you go to therapy? Yeah. And they're like, oh no. Is your job and your stuff your personality, and right? And are you able to show you care about somebody without making your entire identity about that? Which, listen, that is something that I would say confidently every man has done that. Every man. I have done that. It is bad. It is horrible. And I had to go through self-realization stuff, just like Ken and just like Barbie, and just like this movie does a really good job of displaying that self-sufficiency, self-reliance, self-realization are all things that you really need to like look in the mirror and figure some stuff about yourself out. And where validation come from? Yeah, exactly. If it's all, and that's for everybody. If it's all external, that's not a good place to be. That's not a secure place to be. And like that was the whole point, is like when he wasn't getting Barbie's attention, and it's also not Barbie's job to give it to him. Right. She has so many jobs. He didn't know what to do, right? He had to find his own self-worth, and maybe he went a little too far over the edge. when, what did he call it? Kendom?
In his brief walk, his very short walk from Venice Beach to Century City, which is like not close.
On his journey.
And about 20 minutes went through the like wormhole and a rabbit hole into like men's rights activism. But it's like
pipeline is short.
Yeah, but that's like it's this whole movie is showing a truncated version of how things can happen. It's like it fits perfectly for like how they were structuring this movie. And it's just like the fact that it's able to play with that and do it in such a like funny way, and it's never making fun of Ken. It's showing he's making mistakes, but he's not the butt of the joke. The societal structure is the butt of the joke. And so like every time, like I found myself laughing like every single time where he was like, a man would be doing something in the real world that is just a thing a man is doing, and he'd be like, I belong here. Like, it's so insane.
Right? Like there was some survey that was like, it asked men like how many of them confidently felt that they could take over a flight if the pilot had an emergency, and it was like 60% thought that they could go and land a commercial airplane. So it's not surprising that
I'm going to the bathroom and locking the door and just like there's no way.
Or you think about resumes and like, men will apply to jobs that they're like barely 50% qualified for, where women need to like feel like they need to meet like every single solitary requirement in order for them to even try. And
Ken goes on that journey too.
Yep.
When he tries to become a doctor and he's talking to a woman who is a doctor, and he's like, well, can I talk to a doctor? I am a doctor. And then he goes searching for the man. But then like in the lobby where he's being told like, well, you're going to want to have like a master's and whatever. It's just like, but I'm a man. What about patriarchy? And the guy's just like, oh no, we just hide it better now. And it's like, yeah, this is all not wrong.
If since it was in LA, if they took him to like medieval times and he got to see the horses, I feel like he would have felt better.
Probably, yeah. That is, I love that. I do love at the end when he's just like, as soon as I found out it's not really about horses, I lost interest.
I hope somewhere in the future Ken became like a ranch hand, like he's living his best
ranch Ken
horse riding life.
Ken's ranch dressing. Where does it come from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Who's Ken? Now we know. But yeah, no, this movie, like, I feel like, yes, is it the feminist manifesto that I needed right now? Yes. But there's something for everyone. And also, if you feel yourself feeling attacked, or if you're a man and you're feeling uncomfortable, maybe you want to look within.
And also that means the movie did its job.
Maybe some self-reflection.
Yeah.
Just gonna make that little suggestion.
Yeah, I do, before we end up like rounding out and everything, I do want to point out my just picturing the image of, and it's in the I Am Ken trailer too, but just the incredible amount of intensity when Ryan Gosling with like the fur coat and like the eyeliner and the headband and stuff, when he's yelling, and I'll see you on the Malibu beach. It's like out of Warriors or something. And it's one, oh my God, it's one of the funniest images. Like I'm gonna be like on my deathbed in a nursing home and picture that and laugh before I die. Like, it's so good.
You just reminded me. How did we not talk about one of the best musical cues in a movie this year? Matchbox Twenty's Push.
Yep. And what's extremely funny is they were in, well, Mansfield, but they were in Boston the night after the movie came out, and my sister was at that concert, and she posted to her Instagram stories of them playing that song. And I just responded to her saying, like, you're going to lose your mind when you see Barbie. And she goes, why? And I was like, it involves a song. That's all I'm going to say. And she replied back saying, I was wondering why he dedicated that song to Ryan Gosling tonight. Like, it's so good.
Just gonna play that one at you. Also, fun fact, I too have seen Matchbox 20 in Mansfield.
I mean, that's
Semisonic and Soul Asylum opened. I went with my dad.
Nice.
Nice. Oh, and then there was one more thing that I feel like is very relevant to us, is that the actor that plays Gravik in Secret Invasion right now.
There was a little technical hiccup, but we're continuing on. Also, on top of the actor who plays Gravik, is also the upcoming next Doctor as well in there. And the whole entire cast of Sex Education.
Right. Yeah. And then also, we cannot forget Shang-Chi. So we had Scott Pilgrim, Shang-Chi, the Doctor, Gravik. So we got Skrull.
John Cena. Which his wig was for some reason better than Dua Lipa's, even though they were like supposed to basically be the same wig.
It's a role he was born to play.
Yep. He's born to play a lot of things. He's a chameleon. That's why you can't see him. Yeah, I'm really happy that we got such an all-around quality movie and an interesting movie, and it's not just like, hey, we have Barbie as a IP, let's make a Barbie movie. It goes beyond that in many ways, and it's gonna be in my top 10. Spoilers for my top 10 video this year. This will be there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm probably gonna see it again.
Cool. Are you gonna also see Oppenheimer again, just to make it the full experience again?
No, thank you. Barbie was a great palate cleanser from Oppenheimer, but once was enough for me.
A palate cleanser with an intense palate.
Yeah, I've had enough about watching men destroy their civilizations in different ways. Thank you.
But we live it. You have to show the art of that. I still haven't seen Oppenheimer. I'm listen. It's still. As soon as I see it, I'm sure I'm gonna love it. But it is also all those things. But yeah, cool. Well, thanks again for coming on, Reena. Mm-hmm. And until next time, I'm here to see my gynecologist.
Oh my God. Bye.